My girlfriend betrayed me and contacted the brothers who abandoned me 18 years ago. When I discovered her lie, they had my number without my permission. Now they're all blocked, and she never expected me to choose my peace of mind over her good intention. I'm 28 years old. I work at a coffee shop downtown. And honestly, I need to tell this story because I've been processing everything that happened for like 2 months now, and I still don't fully understand it. Basically, my girlfriend, well, my ex-girlfriend now, betrayed me in the worst possible way, and all of this brought back people that I had decided to leave in the past years ago. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was 10 years old and my mom died in a car accident. It was in December. I remember it was really cold and there were Christmas lights everywhere, which now seems ironic to me because from that moment on, my life became anything but festive. My mom was everything to me, you know. It was just her and me in our house because my older brothers, Benjamin and Samuel, were already living on their own. Benjamin was like 23 years old at that time. He was already married and worked in some finance thing, and Samuel was 19 and in college. I was the baby of the family, like a decade younger than Samuel. And honestly, I think I was an accident or something, though my mom never said it that way. But the thing is that when she died, I expected one of my brothers to say, "Okay, come live with me. We'll get through this together." But no, that never happened. Benjamin told me that he and his wife were planning to have kids soon, and they didn't have space for me, which, looking back, was a lie because they lived in a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. Samuel told me he was too busy with college and couldn't take care of a kid, that he needed to focus on his studies. And I understood them. I mean, I tried to understand them at that moment because I was a 10-year-old kid who had just lost his mom and didn't want to cause trouble. But basically they sent me into the foster care system without thinking twice. The first years in the system were horrible. I'm not gonna lie. I got moved like 4 times in 3 years, living with families who just wanted the government check or who already had too many kids, and I was just one more. My brothers called me every now and then at first, maybe once a month, asking me how I was, telling me that soon things would get better, but they never did anything concrete to help me. The calls got more and more spaced out, from once a month to once every 3 months, and then they just stopped. When I was 13, I think like half a year went by without either of them contacting me, and by then I had stopped expecting them to. It was easier that way, honestly. Accepting that I was alone, than continuing to wait for something that clearly wasn't going to happen. But then, when I was 14, I got placed with the Davises, who were an older couple without kids of their own, and they were different. Mrs. Davis, even though technically she wasn't my mom, acted more like a mother than my brothers acted like brothers in years. She helped me with homework, made sure I ate well, took me to my doctor's appointments, all those things that seem small but mean everything when you've been floating from house to house without anyone really caring about you. Her husband, Mr. Davis, taught me how to fix things around the house and change the car, oil, and all those practical things a father would do. I stayed with them until I turned 18 and aged out of the system, and honestly, those were the best 4 years since my mom died. The Davises told me I'd always have a place in their home if I needed it, but I felt like I needed to be independent, you know what I mean? I needed to prove to myself that I could do it on my own. I got a job in retail right after turning 18, shared a tiny apartment with 2 roommates I found on Craigslist, and basically survived like that for a couple of years. It wasn't a glamorous life at all. I worked shitty shifts, ate a lot of ramen, and my bank account never had more than $200. My brothers didn't know where I was. I hadn't told them anything when I turned 18, and honestly, I didn't care. I had accepted that they had made their decision years ago, and I had made mine, which was to move forward without them. When I was 20, I decided to move to another city, like start completely from scratch, in a place where nobody knew me, and where I had no connection to my past. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just packed my things, quit my job, and left. I ended up here, in a medium-sized city on the East Coast. I think it was in March or April, I don't remember exactly. I got a job at this coffee shop called The Daily Grind, and the owner, Mrs. Nguyen, was a Vietnamese woman about 60 years old who made the best coffee I've ever had in my life. She hired me on the spot. I think she felt sorry for me when I told her I had just arrived in the city and urgently needed work. At first, I just washed dishes and cleaned tables, but over time, she taught me how to make the specialty coffees, work the espresso machine, all that. Mrs. Neen was like a grandmother to me. She always told me to eat more because, according to her, I was too skinny, and she'd save food from the lunch menu for me to take home. Working there was peaceful, like a stable routine that I liked because there was no drama, just coffee and regular customers that over time I started to know by name. I met Lauren when I was 22, 2 years after moving here. She came to the coffee shop every morning before going to her job at a law firm, always ordered the same thing, an almond milk latte and a blueberry muffin. We started talking. At first, just small talk about the weather or how busy the place was, and then longer conversations when there weren't many people. She asked me out after like a month of these conversations, and honestly, it surprised me because I didn't think someone like her would be interested in someone like me. Lauren was pretty, smart, had a good job, came from a stable family with parents who were still married, siblings she got along with, everything opposite to my life. But she told me she liked how genuine I was, that I didn't try to impress her or pretend to be someone I wasn't, and she found that refreshing. We dated for almost 6 months before we moved in together, which looking back was probably really fast, but at the time it seemed right. She had a one-bedroom apartment bigger than mine, and basically I spent all my free time there anyway, so it made sense. Lauren's family accepted me almost immediately. Her parents invited me to Sunday dinners. Her younger sister always asked me things about working at the coffee shop because she was interested in that, and her brother invited me to play basketball a couple of times. It was like having the family I'd always wanted, people who actually wanted you there and cared about how you were doing. I told Lauren about my past, about my mom, about my brothers who abandoned me, about foster care, everything. She cried when I told her. The part about my brothers told me she couldn't imagine how anyone could do that to a 10-year-old kid, and she promised me that I would never be alone again. And I believed her, because up to that point there was no reason not to believe her. The thing is, I never gave Lauren my brother's contact information because, well, I didn't have it. Like, I didn't have their current phone numbers, didn't know where they lived exactly, nothing. I had blocked them from my life completely when I moved, and although Lauren knew their names because I had mentioned them when I told her my story, that was all she knew. Or so I thought. Turns out Lauren, without telling me anything, decided it would be a good idea to look up Benjamin on Facebook like 4 months ago. I found out about this later, when everything exploded, but basically she found his profile, sent him a message saying who she was, that she was dating me, and gave him my phone number. According to Lauren, she thought she'd be doing something good, helping me reconnect with my family, because in her mind, family should always be together no matter what. She didn't understand that some families hurt you more than help you, and that sometimes cutting contact is the only way to move forward. It all started 2 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon after my shift at the coffee shop. I was in the apartment watching TV when I received a text message from a number I didn't recognize. The message said, "Hey Noah, it's Benjamin, your brother. I hope you're well. I'd like to talk to you if possible." I stared at the phone for like 5 full minutes, unable to process what I was seeing. I hadn't talked to Benjamin in literally a decade, since before I turned 18, and suddenly he appeared on my phone like it was nothing. My first thought was, how the fuck did he get my number? Because I had been very careful not to leave a trace of where I was or how to contact me. I asked him directly in the text, "How did you get this number?" And he responded that Lauren had given it to him because she wanted to help us reconnect. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach, honestly, because Lauren knew what my brothers had done to me and why I didn't want to have contact with them. I confronted Lauren that same night when she got home from work. I asked her why she had done that, why she had contacted Benjamin without asking me first, and she told me she thought it was the right thing to do, that families should forgive each other and move on, that maybe Benjamin had changed and deserved a chance to explain himself. I was furious, like she had never seen me that angry, because this wasn't her decision to make. I told her that she had violated my trust in the worst possible way, that she had completely ignored my feelings and my history to do what she thought was best, as if I were a child who couldn't make his own decisions. Lauren started crying, saying she just wanted to help, that she saw me so sad sometimes, when we talked about family and thought that reconciling with my brothers would make me happy. But she didn't get it. Didn't understand that I wasn't sad about them anymore, that I had made my peace with what happened and moved on. What made me sad was remembering my mom, not the absence of Benjamin and Samuel in my life. I told her I needed her to leave the apartment for a few days, that I needed space to think, and she went to stay with her parents. During those days, Benjamin kept sending me messages, saying he really wanted to talk, that he had things to explain, that Samuel also wanted to see me. I didn't respond to any of his messages, just left them on read and went on with my life. But Lauren wouldn't stop calling me, sending me texts telling me I was being too hard on her, that she had made a mistake but it came from a good place, to please forgive her. Her parents also got involved. Her mom called me saying Lauren was devastated and that I should give her another chance, that everyone makes mistakes and that love means forgiving. But for me, it wasn't just a mistake, it was a fundamental betrayal of trust, and I wasn't sure I could get past it. After like a week of this, I told Lauren we needed to end the relationship. We met at a neutral cafe, not at the Daily Grind because I didn't want to mix my work with this, and I explained to her that what she had done was a deal breaker for me. She cried, begged me to reconsider, told me she'd do anything to fix it, but I had already made my decision. I moved back to my old small apartment, well, not the same one, but a similar one, and started the process of separating our lives. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie, because I loved her and it hurt to end things, but I knew I couldn't be with someone who didn't respect my boundaries that way. Her parents confronted me at the coffee shop like 2 days later, saying I was being immature and that I was throwing away a perfect relationship out of pride. I told them as calmly as possible that they had no idea what they were talking about, and that I would appreciate if they didn't come to my workplace to lecture me about my life. But the thing didn't end there, because Benjamin, persistent as he was, somehow figured out where I worked. He showed up at the Daily Grind one day, like 3 weeks after all this started, and saw me behind the counter. He was 33 years old now, I think. He looked older than I remembered, but I recognized him immediately. He called me by my name and I froze, because honestly I didn't expect him to go as far as showing up in person. I told him I couldn't talk because I was working, but he insisted he just needed 5 minutes of my time. Mrs. Nguyen, who was in the kitchen, came out and asked me if everything was okay, and I told her yes, but that I needed to take a quick break. I went outside with Benjamin, mostly so he wouldn't make a scene in front of the customers, and I asked him what he wanted. Benjamin started with a prepared speech about how sorry he was, about how he had been young and stupid when Mom died, about how he didn't understand at the time what he was doing to me by rejecting me, but that now he understood it because he had 2 kids of his own and couldn't imagine abandoning them that way. He told me Samuel was sorry too, that they had both been talking about this for years and wanted to try to rebuild a relationship with me. I told him it was too late, that they'd had 18 years to try to be my brothers and had chosen not to, and that I had made my peace with that and moved on. Benjamin told me he understood but hoped I could forgive them. That family was important, and it's never too late to start over. I told him, honestly, as clearly as possible, that I didn't forgive them, that I didn't want to have a relationship with them, and that I would appreciate if they stopped contacting me. He looked hurt. Honestly, he seemed genuinely sad, but I didn't feel anything but a kind of emptiness when I looked at him. After Benjamin left, I went back into the coffee shop and got to work, trying to distract myself. But Mrs. Nguyen noticed something was wrong. She asked me if that was one of my brothers, because I had told her my story years ago when I started working there, and when I confirmed it was, she just nodded and told me that if I ever needed to talk, she was there. She didn't pressure me to forgive or reconnect, just offered her support, and that meant more to me than she probably understands. Benjamin texted me that night saying he respected my decision, but that if I ever changed my mind, he'd be there. I didn't respond. Just blocked his number the same way I blocked everyone else's, who was trying to force me back into a family that had rejected me when I needed them most. The following weeks were weird, like I felt like I was in limbo. I had broken up with Lauren, rejected Benjamin, blocked a bunch of people, and suddenly my social life felt very empty. But I felt lighter in a way, like I had taken a weight off my shoulders by finally establishing those boundaries clearly and definitively. I kept working at the coffee shop, went on walks alone, watched shows in my small apartment, and basically focused on what I had in front of me instead of what I had lost. Mrs. Nguyen gave me more hours at work, which I appreciated because it kept me busy and helped me pay the bills without having to share expenses with Lauren. I started saving money for real for the first time in my life, putting away like $300 a month with the goal of eventually opening my own coffee shop someday. I moved to a new apartment like a month ago, one in a different neighborhood closer to work, because I wanted to make sure nobody knew exactly where I lived now. Lauren had tried to show up at my old apartment a couple of times, knocking on the door and asking to talk, and I just wouldn't open. Her messages eventually stopped. I guess she finally understood I wasn't. I'm gonna change my mind. The new place is small, just a studio with a tiny kitchen and a bathroom that barely works, but it's mine, and nobody else has the address except Mrs. Nguyen and the landlord. I feel safer here. Like I finally have control over who can come into my life and who can't. 2 weeks ago, I reconnected with Carlos, a friend from my foster care days who I hadn't seen in years. I found him on Facebook by accident when I was looking to see if anyone from my old high school was still around here, and turns out he lives like 30 minutes away. We got together for coffee, ironically at the Daily Grind, and talked for hours about our lives. Carlos had also had a difficult experience in the system. He had finally been adopted by a family when he was 16, and now worked in construction and had his own apartment. What I liked about talking to Carlos was that he understood in a way that Lauren and her family never could. He knew what it was like to grow up without that family safety net that most people take for granted. He didn't judge me for cutting contact with my brothers. In fact, he told me he thought I had done the right thing by prioritizing my own peace of mind over social expectations of what family should be. Last week, Carlos invited me to a barbecue at his apartment with some of his friends from work, and I went, even though I'm not usually very social. It was nice to be surrounded by new people who didn't know anything about my family drama and who just wanted to have a good time. One of his friends, a guy named Jason, asked me if I had siblings, and I just said no, that I was an only child, and he didn't ask more. I realized in that moment that that was my truth now. Like officially, I don't have brothers because they decided not to be my brothers when I was 10 years old. And I'm deciding to honor that reality. Instead of pretending there's a relationship where there isn't one, I didn't feel guilty saying it. Didn't feel like I was lying. I felt like I was being honest about my life as it really is. Now, at 28, I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can build the life I want without carrying the weight of all these expectations from other people about what I should do or who I should forgive. I work at the coffee shop. I save money. I have some friends like Carlos who understand me, and I have a plan for the future that involves eventually opening my own place. Mrs. Nguyen has been teaching me the business side, how to handle inventory and suppliers and all those things. I need to know if I'm going to make this real someday. I don't know how long it's going to take me to save enough money, probably years, but I have time and I have a clear goal. Sometimes I think about Lauren and wonder if I made the right decision, if I was too hard on her for something she thought was okay. But then I remember how I felt when I saw that message from Benjamin. That feeling of betrayal and that my autonomy had been completely ignored, and I know I couldn't have continued in that relationship. Trust is the foundation of everything, and once it's broken that way, I don't know if it can really be repaired. I also think about Benjamin showing up at the coffee shop, about how he looked genuinely regretful, and a small part of me wonders if I'm closing the door on something that could be good. But most of me knows I don't need Benjamin or Samuel in my life to be complete, that I already found my own way to move forward without them. The truth is, I'm okay. Like really okay, in a way I didn't expect to be after all this drama. I have my job, I have my apartment, I have friends who understand me, and I have a future I'm building with my own hands. I don't need the validation of my brothers who abandoned me. I don't need forgiveness from Lauren for establishing healthy boundaries, and I don't need Lauren's family to understand my decisions. The only thing I need is to keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep saving money, keep learning about the coffee shop business, and keep building a life that's genuinely mine. Yesterday, Carlos asked me if I would ever consider giving Benjamin a chance, and I told him, honestly, I didn't know, that maybe in 10 years I'd feel different, but right now the answer was no. And that's enough for now.